Hi everyone, this is Elias Martin of CollectingJapanesePrints.com. Welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where on Wednesdays we get together and discuss Japanese prints, paintings, history, and culture. It's been a minute since I last saw all of you. It's glad to be back. I took a sort of a small hiatus. It was 2 weeks without Woodblock Wednesdays, so I hope all of you were doing okay. It seems like the world's kind of changed a bit since my last broadcast. And I thought, well, what a better way to sort of celebrate life by looking at wonderful Japanese prints. And maybe it'll get our minds off the troubles of the world, at least for a moment or two. And so today I have a really neat preview of my exhibition that will go live hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed. And if not tomorrow, certainly by Friday. And so the exhibition will feature nearly 80 important works from all genres, where I will have important pieces by ukiyo-e, Meiji period artists, Shinhanga, early Shinhanga pieces by Capillari, by Lum. I will have important Shinhanga pieces by Hasui, Hiroshi Yoshida, and the list goes on. And then I also, of course, have some important Sosaku-hanga artists, such as Onchi. I have a couple really important pieces. I encourage all of you to have a look when the website is updated, which is tomorrow. And lastly, I'll have contemporary artists, some important pieces by Hamanishi, Yoshitoshi Mori. I have some very rare Hakumaki prints also in this exhibition. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone. And so this exhibition, like I said, it will have about 80 new pieces. And so I encourage all of you to have a look. The exhibition is sort of centered on the theme of masterpieces from all genres. It is a continuation of my exhibition from last year. Some of you will remember that exhibition. It happened towards the end of the summer. Well, I've had some other exhibitions since then, but this is sort of a continuation. So I hope all of you can check out the exhibition. And of course, if any pieces are of interest, email me. But for this evening, and this is a very late night edition here. I'm based in Chicago. It's 10 o'clock, so technically it's still Wednesday. And today was full of appointments and preparations for the site. But I thought, well, let's do Woodblock Wednesday. The other thing I want to point out is I'm also going to have a seminar, not this weekend, but the following weekend. So not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, I'm going to have a seminar that features Sosaku-hanga prints by a variety of different artists with the same subject or the same theme is portraits of women. Bijinga, but the Sosaku-hanga artists sort of attempt at that subject. So I think the exhibition that will, basically go up in the next day or so will wet your whistle for some interesting pieces as well. So anyways, those are all the wonderful new things that are happening on my website. And again, the exhibition will go up either tomorrow or Friday. But for this evening, you're having an early sneak preview of 3 works by Hiroshi Yoshida. And I picked these out because they're sort of variations on a theme, and there are also examples of different sizes that the artist produced. And so I think they're just fascinating just for that. But they also happen to be really beautiful. So without further ado, let's go to the table and have a look. So I'm going to back up a little bit so you could see my entire table is full of prints. And there's 3 works. I don't know where to begin. I guess we can begin at this one. This is a very large size print. In fact, I'm going to walk over here. We will discuss this in a moment, but this is a regular size Oban print. And you could see how that work is dwarfed by the size of the entire composition. So this is basically four. If I lay these prints, this print side by side in a horizontal fashion, I think it'd be two and another two. So this size work is about four Oban size prints, and it features Mount Fuji. The title of this work is Fuji First Light of Dawn. It was executed in 1926. It's it's a breathtaking design. Obviously, Mount Fuji is such a stunning, unforgettable sight. For all of you who've been to Japan and have seen Mount Fuji, you know what I mean. And so, Mount Fuji is one of those iconic sort of subjects that every artist must tackle in Japan. I mean, we're talking about artists who do abstract sculpture to painting and woodblock print artists. Everyone has done a work of art inspired by Japan's iconic subject of Mount Fuji. It's sort of the spirit of Japan, really. You can name a few things that epitomize Japan, but Mount Fuji's certainly on top of the list, if not number one. And Hiroshi Yoshida, I think, did an amazing job of capturing Mount Fuji's majestic, stunning quality, and he produced several designs over his long career. And I've spoken about Hiroshi Yoshida before, but I know that there's a lot of new people watching on YouTube, and so I want to welcome all of you. And so Hiroshi Yoshida is a Shinhanga artist. He was born in 1876 and passed away in 1950. And this print was done in 1926, so it's on the earlier side of his career. He started working in woodblock prints before the earthquake, and that was 1923 when he started making woodblock prints. But he was an oil painter and watercolorist well before that, and actually traveled to the U.S. and sold a lot of his, paintings, watercolors. But he noticed that Americans were interested in woodblock prints. They were buying the work of the earlier Edo period prints, and so he thought, well, why not take a stab of making his own woodblock print designs based on sketches and as well as his watercolors and oil paintings. But at this point in time, he was a well-established woodblock print artist. He had his own studio. And this work, just the size of this work, gives you a sense that, Yoshida wasn't afraid to experiment. He had his studio of artisans that were quite capable of producing designs like this. And what we have here is this breathtaking view of Mount Fuji. And this silhouette is just, it's unforgettable. And once you've seen it in your life, you'll never forget it. You could close your eyes and just imagine Mount Fuji's sort of silhouette. It's recognizable around the world. I mean, particularly now that there's emojis based on Mount Fuji. You've seen images, certainly if you haven't been to Japan, and this is one of Yoshida's fantastic works done in this large scale. And I think the scale of this woodblock print really helps convey how large Mount Fuji is. And there's a lake around Mount Fuji that you'll see over and over again by different artists, and that is Lake Yamanaka. And it's basically right near Mount Fuji, and it's visited quite often because it's so picturesque. You could take these fantastic photos of the reflection of Mount Fuji in the water, and you'll see what I mean with the other prints. But in this case, we have the artist interested in showing a very poetic, atmospheric scene of Mount Fuji. This is Mount Fuji as dawn breaks. It's as the title suggests, first light of dawn. And so what we have here is this really wonderful sort of atmospheric quality at the lower portion of Mount Fuji, when you look at this in person, it's really convincing actually. It has this sort of misty, um, soft, white, diffused light that you see when dawn is breaking, particularly around vegetation. And what we have here, down here, is, of course, the tree line, and you get that sense of this mist that's rising, and the mist rises in a way that is highlighted by the light streaming in from the right side here, and it sort of picks up a color of blue, kind of a purplish blue. And as it moves up even further, the design, you see a yellowish orange quality, and then, of course, almost a turquoise sky. It's a stunning, stunning work. And when we think about this, this is a woodblock print carved and printed with wood blocks, and the amount of work that went into this is substantial. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into an oban size print. So as I pointed out early on, this print represents I'm sorry, four of the oban size prints. One oban goes here, another one goes there, and so that gives you the sense of the size. And from what I understand, Yoshida didn't produce that many impressions of his oversized prints. Because he had his own studio and he was very independent minded, he also valued his work quite a bit. And there was a premium on designs that were oversized. And so he charged quite a bit for these. And because of the price, they didn't sell as well. And I can understand that, because in Japanese homes that are traditional, they don't have that much wall space. And when in a particular sort of style in the Japanese home, you rotate art, and this is quite large. So I can't imagine in a traditional Japanese home someone framing this and then putting it in a closet and only bringing it out every so often. So oban sized prints worked better in a traditional Japanese home. Now, granted, these were sort of produced with Westerners in mind, and they sold well in the West. But shipping and other things sort of prevented Yoshida for producing these designs in large quantities. So there are certain designs that I've been told by family members that were done in an edition of 30 or less. And this one isn't in one of those. That certainly was done in under 50 impressions, and probably most likely under 30. You don't see this design for sale all that often. And when you do, there's a lot of condition issues because they were framed, and usually framing during the late 20s, early 30s was not archival, and it caused a lot of problems. And so anyway, it's very rare to find a print in this state with its original coloration, and just this is what the print looked like when the artist produced it. So I've spoken a lot. I just want to zoom in so you could just look at the design. Now, I want to mention a few things for connoisseurs. So, for those of you that are new to collecting Hiroshi Yoshida, this is one of the most important things you want to look at: a Jizuri seal. And what that means is this seal was applied once the print was finished and the artist approved of this impression. He carefully examined it to make sure that it achieved his standards, and those standards were quite high. And so there were no imperfections in the printing. And on occasion, I've seen prints with imperfections in the sky, or something wrong with them, and then you have a stamp that says sample. And what will happen is if there was a mistake, or just a print didn't print as well as one should have been done, Yoshida rejected it. and they stamped it as a sample to have it in the studio to show potential buyers of that design what the design looks like. So that's interesting. But of course, in this impression, we have his jizuri, which technically means self-printed, but this was executed by his studio, and it may or may not have been printed by the artist himself. Early work was often printed by the artist, but one can't really tell when the designs are sort of standardized. If they were early trial printings, most likely it was done by the artist himself. But this impression is just stunning. And again, I just want to back up a little bit so you could see the atmospheric quality of the sky and just the overall composition. His understanding and use of light in woodblock prints is just unmatched. I think it's better than Hasui. Yoshida really understood how to imbue his impressions with a strong atmospheric quality that also harnessed light in such a outstanding way. All right. I mean, I can go on and on to talk about this. The next work, though, is Lake Yamanaka. That's the title of this work. And this was done in 1929. So this was 1926, 1929. So 3 years later, and you could see the artist is still very much interested in this subject. It is stunning. And here, the design is slightly different. It's a different angle of Fuji. You'll see that in this angle of Fuji, there's this little larger protrusion that comes out, or a little part of the mountain that is just kind of almost looks like a triangle here. In this angle, we don't see that. It's sort of, I think it's the artist standing on this side, looking towards the mountain. So here, what we have is more of a centered perspective. Mount Fuji is directly in the center of the composition, and of course, it is reflected so beautifully in this water. And as I mentioned, and this is one more example of so many where we see Yoshida's masterful use of light, and of course, he was able to exploit the possibilities of woodblock prints in producing atmospheric qualities. So I can bring the camera closer, and you could kind of see what I mean. Now, I brought this out also purposefully because not only is this a print done by the artist and done during his lifetime, it's also one of those anomalies that when you're new to collecting, it's always important to learn the rules. And of course, the Jizuri seal is an important aspect of collecting Hiroshi Yoshida. However, there are certain designs that don't have Jizuri seals for whatever reason. And this is one of those designs. So he never issued this design as a Jizuri seal impression. But what we have here is a live pencil signature. So that tells us that it's a self-printed lifetime edition. Now, when I mean self-printed, I mean it was done during his lifetime under his strict supervision. He may or may not have printed it, but it is not a later impression. It is within his lifetime. And a lot of collectors, they get confused because there is a lot of posthumous impressions of different designs out in the marketplace. And quite frankly, those impressions are fantastic. I think the Yoshida family and the Yoshida Studios has continued to produce, really superior work, and the quality is still there. However, as a collector who is interested in acquiring a piece that reflects history, as well as is connected to the original artist, you do want to purchase prints that were done during the artist's lifetime. That's my encouragement, at least. And of course, financially, you're always rewarded with these earlier printings. And as art is an investment, as many of you know, these prints have gone up in price throughout, their inception. And I've been collecting for 20 years, and when I first started collecting, this design you could find for $2,000 or $3,000, and now you can add 10,000 to that. And this is significantly more. The prices go up exponentially by the size as well. So I want to point out, let me see if I could pull this print from the background. You will see that this print is not exactly the size of Fuji First Light of Dawn. Lake Yamanaka it's shy of, I'd say about, it was a 3.5 inches. So maybe 1.5 to 2 inches on each side. And so it's interesting. But the artist still wanted to pursue this subject on a larger size. And I think he produced something smaller because it's just hard to produce something this size. And even we're talking about 2 inches or so on each side. Even then, those 2 inches are significant when you're carving, 20 to 40 blocks of wood to produce these designs. And his designs, though, if you count out the colors, they may only be like 6 or 7 in this design. But to achieve this effect, you have to use them over and over and over again. And you print the bokashi a certain way. And then you go back and you print the blue, and then there's over printings. And so, though you may only see 4 to 6 colors, the printing blocks you multiply that by at least 10. And so, the printing is very, very complicated and laborsome. And so this is why these larger size prints are that much more rare. I mean, isn't that stunning? I mean, that reflection of Mount Fuji, it looks so realistic. And again, he got that really wonderful mist. I'd say this is sort of a view of Fuji at dusk. Obviously, this is dawn. And so this is sort of bright and lively, and you could kind of see day, the day erupting with such energy. And in this design, there's a really strong contemplative, quiet quality to it. Both are fantastic, but it's funny, we're looking at the same subject, but each of these prints have a very different feel to them. Back up so you could see how big these are on my table. And the last work I want to show is again Mount Fuji. And we have the lake here that we've been discussing, Lake Yamanaka. And the view of Fuji is very similar to this view. And here we have a hotel. And this is the hotel that was there. Here, let me get my notes. I think this is 1936. Nope, 1937. And this print was done as sort of a commission by the owner of the hotel. So 1937 is when the print was done. And this is the new Fuji Hotel. And so imagine, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, I don't believe the hotel is in operation anymore, but just imagine having a room and looking out at this pristine lake and then having Mount Fuji sort of just tower above everything. That would be amazing. And so this design is actually fairly rare. The print, because it was commissioned, by the hotel owner, most of the inventory went to him. And so he did what he wanted with those prints. Maybe he gave them away. Who knows what he did? And so the Yoshida family kept some and they sold some. Um, but the amount of inventory for this design was very limited. And so this is one of those designs that you just don't see all that often. And also, I want to point out the signature here is in ballpoint pen. And this design happens to be another rare example where there is no Jazuri seal. Because it was a commission, this was never reprinted. Oops, my connection was struggling there. Sorry if I disappeared. And as what I was saying is that this design was never reprinted by the Yoshida Studios or by the family, and so it only comes in one state, and so it's very rare. So I'm going to zoom in so you could see. Can you imagine sort of driving up to this and there's this really finely appointed stately sort of driveway that leads you to the hotel and have this entire view? I mean, it's pretty astonishing actually. So I want to go back a little bit so I could show you all three designs one last time. And for those of you who are not familiar with Hiroshi Yoshida, as I said, he's a Shinhanga artist who was working. He basically worked until he passed away up until 1950, and so you can find prints that were produced as early as in 1922 and 23, pre-earthquake, and then prints that lead up to his passing. And so he was a very prolific artist and traveled around the world. And so, of course, these are three examples of prints of a Japanese subject, but he traveled the world. And this is a book that I brought out. It is available in my bookstore at collectingjapaneseprints.com. This is the complete catalog raisonné for his body of work. And you'll see the cover of this book actually has a design from his India series. So he was an avid world traveler, a mountaineer as well. So he did a lot of designs of mountains. He liked to hike them all. So I'm certain that he hiked Mount Fuji at least once in his life. And so yeah, these are wonderful examples of designs done by the artist celebrating Mount Fuji. So I'm going to zoom in on all three one last time so you can see how beautiful they are. Well, I hope all of you enjoyed our installment for our late evening Woodblock Wednesday. And so, for those of you who are watching this, and it is early Thursday, maybe in Europe, I will be launching my new website updates that will feature about almost 80 new works on my site. Masterpieces from all genres, so there'll be really fantastic prints for any taste. And these Hiroshi Yoshida prints are among those. So it's a little wet your whistle for what I'm offering. And I think this was a really wonderful opportunity to see close up three very different designs celebrating Japan's most iconic sort of natural landmark. And so for those of you who've never been to Japan, go. when we're able to, I suppose, and check out Mount Fuji. It is amazing, a beautiful sight to behold. So I want to thank all of you for joining me, and for those of you who are new and are joining on YouTube, welcome. My Woodblock Wednesdays are always filmed live on Facebook, but then archived onto YouTube. And of course, my website is collectingjapaneseprints.com. So I look forward to seeing you all next week in our next installment of Woodblock Wednesday. Until then, thanks.